What's up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you back on the channel. On today's episode, we'll be looking at the top 5 reasons why most beginner brands fail. On this episode, I'll be pulling in from my personal experience coaching over 1,000 clients, all beginner brands, in terms of the different trials and tribulations that they personally experienced and how we overcame them. I get it. Going into any new business can be an incredibly exciting prospect, and setting up a business, especially a fashion business, can be so fulfilling. But there are a ton of different pitfalls that I personally experienced that I'm going to outline on today's episode, and we'll run you through them one by one. So without further ado, let's get right into the episode. What's up, design family, and welcome to Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you here. On this channel, we discuss all things sports fashion, graphic design, manufacturing, and technology. We'll discuss key topics, answer pressing questions, and provide actionable steps on starting your own product line. If you're interested in any of the above topics, stick around. You're in for a good one. Number 1 on our list is a poor or a lack of understanding of the full scope of the work required to create a successful fashion business. I get it, creating a fashion business can be an exciting prospect, especially when you're going into it, you have a lot of motivation. You have an idea that you want to execute on, and the idea of working for yourself or creating something for yourself can be so alluring. I would recommend it to anyone, and for me, it's been one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done in my life. But beware, before going in, it's so important to understand the full scope of the work required to bring a project to fruition. Most people think all I need to do is create a custom product and get it made, and voila, I have a successful business on my hands. And although that may be partially true, truly the scope of the work that you need to do is so wide. There's so much more that comes into play that most people do not take into account. Not only do you need to set up the business, not only do you need to figure out what your product is, not only do you need to figure out what your brand looks like and how it differs from brands XYZ, but you'll also be able to manage a team, whether it's an internal team or an external team. You need to be able to move a project along deadlines. You need to be able to budget your resources. You need to be able to identify your target market, find out where your customers are, and market to them appropriately. There's so many different tools at play here, and it's just so important to make sure you're staying on track, or else you're going to find yourself in a position where ultimately you've lost motivation and you don't have the will or the resources or even the time to continue and see your project through to fruition. Number 2 on our list is having a poorly managed budget, or most cases, no budget at all. Let's face it, a fashion business is a highly capital intensive business, and there are so many costs associated to this. We've done a separate video in the past, and I highly recommend you check it out, where we've gone more into detail into what these costs are, how to identify them, and how to budget for them. But in general, going into this business, understand that you need to create a concrete and strategic budget. You need to know how much it's going to cost you to get this brand up and running. So having a good idea of the full scope of the costs associated with setting up this brand is going to be key towards the longevity and the success of your business. I'll outline some costs that you most likely won't have thought of before, and these are kind of different than the costs that you typically associate with manufacturing custom product. First one is going to be definitely your design and your tech packing costs. Again, I'll get into a separate video in the future in terms of why this is so important, but creating a strong tech pack is key, especially when it comes to creating custom and unique apparel. 2 here is going to be things like your sampling cost. Obviously, once you create your design tech pack, you want to make sure that a supplier is able to execute on it. And you may actually entertain 1 or 2 or 3 different suppliers before you find the right one. All of these are going to have sampling costs associated with it. You're also going to have the shipping costs of these samples, which a lot of people don't take into account and suppliers won't even mention. Again, doesn't mean that they're trying to be unscrupulous, but these are hidden costs that can creep up on you, especially if you're sampling over and over, which is a byproduct, again, of not having a proper tech pack. You'll have things like your accessories and your mold costs. For example, if you're creating hang tags, product sleeves, polymeters, all of these are additional costs that are going to stack up on you. You'll have things like your logo setup costs or your mold costs, especially if you're creating something that's a bit more specialized, like a 3D silicone logo, or you're creating an emboss or a deboss. All of these things are going to add up. You have, from a business standpoint, you have your legal entity setup costs. if you're setting up your trademarks or your copyrights. All of these again are going to stack up. You have things like your payment processing costs, whether you're paying with credit card or wire transfer or PayPal. These are small costs, and depending on the specific processor you're using, it's going to differ. You also have things like your duties, your tariffs, your customs costs. These are very difficult to calculate, and depending on the country that you're in, they will differ. Some countries are a lot more transparent and clear, and some countries unfortunately are not. You'll have to do your research beforehand. You have your marketing costs. Find out where your customers are, how to reach them, how much is it going to cost you to acquire a customer, to convert a customer. You have your storage costs. If you're using a third-party storage facility, how much is it going to cost you to store that item? How much is it going to cost you to ship out that item? Again, these are all different costs, and they do add up in the end. So make sure that you're outlining all of them and you're budgeting for them appropriately. Number 3 is Frankensteining a product or a custom design because of a lack of a proper tech pack. This ultimately leads to oversampling, creating more samples than you need to, which leads to a drainage of your resources, aka your finances, your time, and ultimately your motivation. It's so important when you're creating a custom and unique product design that you take the time to structure a proper tech pack. Some factories will be more than happy to take your money and to take your time and to have you come into the world and tell you that they can deliver a custom product based on a bunch of photos and a bunch of texts that you're sending back and forth. Believe me when I say that this may work on very, very simple products, but the second you want to create something that is truly unique, truly authentic, here you're going to end up walking or running into walls. Make sure that you're creating a proper tech pack. We've done a separate video in the past that really runs you through all the key components and the different types of information that you'll need to and want to include in a custom product design tech pack. That way, your first sample can be 99% perfect. Again, you're never going to achieve 100% perfection, but you're going to get yourself to a point where after the first sample, you're extremely confident in number 1, that factory's ability, number 2, the design you've created, and 3, you're going to feel a lot more focused in your direction moving forward in terms of the design and sampling process of that specific product. So take the time and don't skimp out on this process. Make a custom tech pack. Whether it's on your own, again, you can watch one of our videos, or you want to hire a professional, this is up to you. But I guarantee you, this is one of the surefire ways to avoid disaster down the line. Number 4 is a lack of brand direction, authenticity, and focus. Creating custom product is nowhere near enough to succeed in the fashion world, especially when you have a business as saturated as sportswear. Yes, it's lucrative, but that means that it approaches or attracts so many different competitors into the space. Going into it, you can't just create a great product that everyone else is creating. You need to understand what your unique add value is, what your story is, what niche you're trying to target that no one else is looking at or incorporating. For example, you can look at creating yoga apparel, but let's just say you're focused on yoga apparel that specifically targets sustainability causes, or you want to create a yoga brand with a cause or a purpose. Being direct and structured in your approach and knowing what your end customer ultimately looks like is really going to allow you to tailor the look of your brand, the products, the types of materials you use, the colors. You're going to have the foundational segment to any question or any design question or any business question that's inevitably going to arise, and you're going to be able to answer it in a way that's purposeful, that's composed, and consistent. All of this is going to help you create a brand that's a lot more focused, directed, and ultimately you're going to reach the type of customer that you want, and you're going to help yourself stand out from the crowd. Number 5 is having no concrete marketing strategy. You can have the best brand in the world, the most luxurious and high-end products in the world, but if no one knows about you or your products, all of this is to no avail. A successful marketing campaign is going to be centered around 3 key things. Number 1 is you're going to want to let your customers know you exist. 2, you're going to want to let your customers know what makes you special and why they need what you're selling. And then 3, you're going to want to let your customers know where they can buy this product. In general, my recommendation when you're going into digital marketing, figure out a bunch of different platforms. Try your hand in different platforms. Figure out which of these platforms or which set of these platforms is going to work best for your brand. And this may differ depending on your business, right? Your customers may be on platform X, whereas they may not be on platform Y. So finding out where your customers are and then honing in on the strategies that you're using to reach out to them, to communicate with them, and to get them to convert is going to go a long way towards allowing you to deploy a successful and effective and ultimately productive marketing strategy long term. Well guys, that is it. That is a wrap on this episode. To recap quickly, we looked at the 5 key reasons why most beginner brands fail. First was a poor understanding of the overall scope of what is required to create a successful fashion brand. 2 is a poorly managed budget or having ultimately no budget at all. 3 was Frankensteining a product or trying to create a product without a proper tech pack. 4 was a lack of brand direction and authenticity. So not having anything that helps you stand out from the crowd and not knowing who your customers are. And then last is not having a proper and effective marketing strategy. If you guys enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. We put out great content on a week-to-week basis, and honestly, we'd love to have you along for the ride. Also, if you want to hop on a one-on-one consultation call where we can go through this and actually much more, and I can give you specific and tailored feedback in terms of how to set up your business, how to create unique custom products, custom design, how to stand out from the crowd, how to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that beginner brands go into. Definitely check the link in the description. You can set up a one-on-one consultation call with me, and I'd love to hear what you have to say and try to see where I can help you. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. It really does help us out. And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next one, stay awesome.